I'm so thrilled. Our next guest is Janet Singer Applefield. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's written a book called Becoming Janet, Finding Myself in the Holocaust. And I'm so thrilled to have her on the show today and to meet her. Janet, it's such a pleasure. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your book, Becoming Janet, Finding Myself in the Holocaust, was just released a couple of weeks ago. Tell us what made you say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write my story.
I felt compelled to write my story because I lived through the most difficult times in history, and it's a story that needs to be heard. And I speak to over 4,000 people a year, sharing this story with others. It's a story about a child, written from the perspective of a little girl who is separated from her family, and she has many different caregivers, some very generous and kind, and others not so kind. So it's a story that explains how difficult it was to get through those years.
It's a story of survival. As you said, you talk to students, educators, religious leaders, government officials, and librarians. And what you really do is raise awareness and, as you said, Janet, understanding of the dangers of prejudice. And you really encourage audiences to stand up to any kind of discrimination and injustice.
Yes, that's correct. I feel that my story has an impact on students, especially students, and I make a connection with many of them, and that's very rewarding to know that I've made that connection.
Janet, is it difficult when you speak to these groups to relive these memories, or is it therapeutic? What is your emotion, and what are your emotions when you're speaking to all these people, and now through the book?
Sometimes it triggers my trauma, my feelings. But, of course, I've done this for such a long time that it's actually healing for me to share my story, to know that I've made a difference. I'm hoping that I'm making a difference.
You absolutely are. How important is it for parents to approach difficult topics like the Holocaust and teach their children about the Holocaust?
I think it's very important to teach their children about the kind of hatred that was so prevalent during the Holocaust. And I think young people, students, need to know about this period of history. So it's important for parents to share. And I'm very gratified that sometimes students come up to me after my talk. I remember one particular girl, she was, I think, around 11, and she said to me, "You were so brave. You have taught me to be braver." And another student, a high school student, asked me the question. He asked, "How do I speak to my parents who sometimes make anti-Semitic comments?" And that, knowing that these students have such trust in me and I've connected with them, it's very gratifying for me.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. The students actually coming up to you saying, "Hey, how can I help my parents? How can I make them better?"
Exactly.
What were your feelings? What were your thoughts after October 7th, after you were watching? Was it opening up new wounds when you were watching all of this? And then, of course, all of the various protests that were happening on college campuses throughout the country.
Well, the attack of October 7th was extremely disturbing and upsetting, and it really triggered my own feelings. And seeing what's happening, in the world today on campuses, it's so upsetting and so disturbing. War is terrible.
Yeah.
And I've had tremendous empathy for all those people that are suffering so much.
Talking to Janet Singer Applefield, Holocaust survivor, about her new book, Becoming Janet, Finding Myself in the Holocaust. And I don't want you to give too much away because I want everybody to read the book. I can't wait to read it, Janet. But tell me a little bit about, I found it just so interesting, the anecdotes where you were talking about reuniting with your rescuers almost 40 years later.
That was very emotional. I went back to Poland in the early 80s, and I just knocked on the door of the family that rescued me, and the family was still there.
Wow.
The parents were deceased, but the children were there, and I got the most wonderful welcome. And it was so crazy because they pulled out photographs of me when I was a little girl, so my children couldn't believe that they were seeing their mother in this particular setting. So it was very, very exciting.
Oh, that had to be so emotional. So you literally just went back to Poland, found the house, and then knocked on the door, and the family had still been part of the residence there.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I bet that was extremely emotional for you and your family.
It really was. It was amazing because at first I didn't even know where I was going because I did not remember the addresses. And the last moment before the trip, I found an old piece of paper, yellowed paper, that my father made me write things down after he and I were reunited, and I found their address.
Boy, that's incredible. And you heard her correctly. You were reunited with your father as well, which is an incredible story for you, an incredible part of your journey.
Yes, my father told me that he was looking, and he said, for a long time, and then he said, how do you find a child in a city of 350,000 people? He had no idea where I was, and he was searching everywhere for me.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. Please, everybody needs to read this book, Becoming Janet, Finding Myself in the Holocaust. Janet, thank you so much for being with us. Before we let you go, I want you to have the last word. I want you to tell all of our listeners, everybody hearing you and hearing this, what do you want them to know? What should we be doing to better ourselves today?
I think it's so important for all of us to stand up to any kind of injustice and to be kind to each other and to be generous, because even the smallest act of kindness has a ripple effect.
Well, you are wonderful. I hope you sell out. And again, your best-selling author, Becoming Janet again, Finding Myself in the Holocaust. As Steve always says, buy 2 copies. You're careless. You're probably going to lose one. But Janet, you are just a pleasure. Just kudos to you and your journey and all of your success, and my best to you and all of your family.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janet. Boy, she's wonderful. How remarkable. Please get that book. I can't wait to hear about it. And yeah, you did hear right. She was reunited with her father, and she was reunited with her rescuers almost 40 years after.
That's something that you hear the stories that doesn't happen. They
God.
would not see their family members.
Yeah, she's in her 90s, by the way.
Incredible.
She's just remarkable.